Oh boy, that ACC doomsday clock could be striking zero sooner rather than later. That is the latest update from Josh Pate, one of the most connected, well, or at least respected voices in college football these days. I don't mean to slam Josh Pate here in the open at all. That was not my intention. He's not Pete Thamel. He's not a reporter by trade. He's not Ross Dellinger, but he is a pretty important college football voice, I would tell you. I know some dispute that. I would tell you that. And Josh Pate has updated the GIF that he put out earlier this week that drew a lot of attention across the digital college football world. It was about the ACC and insinuated that the ACC would be doing the opposite of expanding sooner rather than later. He has clarified those comments. He has given more of an update on his latest audio-only show, and does not sound good if you're an ACC fan, minus potentially Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, any of the schools that are in demand. And I'll be honest, I was surprised even by the fact that he floated, hey, it could be before the start of the season that we get some really big breaking news on this. So I did not expect that to come, but as this has gone since 2021, when we started with this latest realignment cycle, everything does seemingly come kind of out of nowhere and pick up speed. I guess a lot of it has. Two of the three, I would say, have come out of nowhere. Texas and Oklahoma certainly came out of nowhere. USC and UCLA, I would say, still, for the most part, came out of nowhere. Now, I did not know who Greg Pflugar was at the time, but if you did, he did call his shot on Twitter a while before this happened, weeks to months before this happened. And my apologies, Greg. I can't remember the specific timeline on that. You know, the Pac-12 piece of this was much more telegraphed because of the saga that they were going through, and there was a long buildup with that. There's been a long buildup with the ACC, and you could say that this is kind of a hybrid of the two because there is this long buildup. It's telegraphed what Florida State and Clemson want to do, but yet it still has to all play out. And it's been anticipated here that was going to take months, years perhaps, to work its way through the court. We still have like all four court cases going in 3 different states. There is an update on that. Matt Baker from the Tampa Bay Times has done a tremendous job with that. And the update basically is everything's still on. The ACC took some L's, not going very well for them. So we're moving forward with that. But it felt like that was going to take forever to work itself out. So how could this be worked out by the time the season starts? But that's what Josh Pate is leading us to believe is at least a possibility. So we'll talk about that to lead the show, get you updated on everything that is going on in court as I continue to pursue my my law degree. I will tell you when I take the LSAT after covering college football here in the year 2024, I figure that by the time we're done with the 2025 season, I should be ready for the LSAT. So I'll let you know how it goes. That certainly seems to be a more lucrative career than the radio career that I decided to start out outside of college. So really, maybe this has all been just a blessing in disguise, you know, just a crazy winding road to lead me there. If you guys watched earlier this week, you did see a video with some of the update from Josh Pate, but also you saw a video that I put out there about Gene Taylor from K-State, who is the athletic director. I had a chance to speak with him about everything going on right now with revenue sharing, how the Big 12 is going to try and stay competitive there, broached the private equity topic, broached the naming rights topic. He was not able to go into much specific detail on that, which makes sense. Those things are ongoing deals being negotiated or sussed out or vetted, whatever word that you want to use right now. So he was not able to get into a ton of specifics on that, but he did give us, I thought, some real insight into the revenue sharing piece of this. I want to play some of the clips from Gene Taylor. So if you missed that, we'll hear a Big 12 athletic director talk about the odds that a Big 12 school is going to be able to keep up in this revenue sharing world that we are about to enter. Plus, there's an update from Ohio State that I would say kind of contradicts one of the things that Gene Taylor said there. So it's a bit of a follow-up to the Gene Taylor interview and the Gene Taylor comments that we'll go through here on the show as well. If you want to talk actual football, which again, I would love to, guys, and if you want to, click the $ below the chat box. Hit me up. You know that is a way to do it. I will just say, once again, the lowest performing video that I put out in the last 6 months was the video where Shahan Jayaraja, who's one of the best college football analysts out there right now and reporters out there, we just broke down the Big 12's football season. That seemed to be the video that drew the least attention. So I don't always lead with that stuff, but there is a pretty interesting reveal from Phil Steele of where he has everybody in the Big 12. And got news for you. Most Big 12 fans, I would say, probably will roll their eyes. Maybe not like it is too strong, because frankly, you should like it if you're a Big 12 fan. You definitely should, but you might roll your eyes. I would say that a lot of Big 12 fans would roll their eyes at the way Phil Steele ranked teams in the Big 12. You guys want to talk about Brent Venables getting a new deal? Like Oklahoma just negotiating against itself to give Brent Venables like a $900,000 raise as they go into the SEC, coming off of a 6-game over 500 stint in the Big 12, just dominating the Big 12 for Brent Venables. We can get into all of that too, but you guys know how this works. As I mentioned, click the $ below the chat box if you want to join in tonight. That is the way to guarantee that your question or comment gets read. Click the $ below the chat box in order to do so. It will allow you to control the content, voice your opinion, and support the work that I'm doing to bring you Big 12 content on a week in, week out basis. Really appreciate all of you guys. Couldn't do it without all of your support, but the same goes for all of you who just like the video, which is totally free. I much appreciate anybody who does that. If you just like the video, easy way to support the channel. Would much, much, much appreciate that. Leave comments underneath the video. If you're watching this afterward, let me know what you think. Where are you at on this ACC thing? Let me know in the comments, and let me know, obviously, in the live show comments. Also, all that stuff drives engagement. It's good for me. It helps, and it is totally, totally free. And my guy Clint has checked in on Venmo, and you guys know the deal on Venmo by now. If you are not able to catch these shows live and you still want to be a part of the conversation, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo is the way that you can do that. You leave a question or comment there, I will lead off the next show with it, and that is exactly what has happened with Clint. So, Clint, I appreciate your support as always. Thank you, sir. Clint says, replace championship week with bubble week. At the end of the regular season, the college football playoff reveals 8 autos and 8 at large. College football playoff reveals 8 autos and 8 at large. Select 8 bubbles to play each other. Winners are in. If the SEC wants 5 or 6, prove it on field in non-cons at neutral sites. Potentially more all-state 12 teams too. Very good, Clint. Already working on that all-state 12. Getting it in there. This is extra money, all-state, okay? Really, we're helping the Big 12 out with this. Pardon me. We're helping the all-state 12 out with this. We are maximizing the dollar value of the sponsorship. So it will either A, pay off with Allstate being like, oh, hey, look, this was actually great. Maybe we should cough up some more money here because everybody's already taking to it and we're making our money's worth by getting this story out there in the first place. Or it will pay off when they have to renew. And they'll say, well, look, this was so great. Everybody gassed us up from the beginning. We'll do it. Clint, you're on top of it, my man. Thank you. I mean, that's a cool idea. Like, hey, we've got 8 auto bids here at the end of the regular season, and then we have 8 bubble games where you got like play-in games, right? Think NCAA tournament. You have 8 play-in games. Winner gets into the college football playoff. That would be a lot of fun. Generally, the things that seem like a lot of fun or could make it, as you are kind of insinuating here, more fair, equitable, like prove it on the field kind of a thing. Generally, those things just don't happen in the sport. We don't get a whole lot of that makes sense. So Clint, this is a good idea. It's a fun idea. There are a lot of those out there. I mean, College Sports Tomorrow folks put together a great proposal for how to do all this with, some relegation, which is a thing I think like everybody would love to see. It would be wildly entertaining. It would be good for the health of the sport. We don't get those things to pay off in reality, but in our world here on this channel, I welcome any and all creative ideas that you guys have. I am here for all of your creative ideas on how to handle championship games, playoff, Big 12, whatever it might be. So, Clint, thank you, sir, for that. It is a good idea. we'll have to, maybe Allstate can sponsor that thing, Allstate Bubble Week. It could just be Clint's Bubble Week. We'll figure something out there, Clint, but I'll keep that not just in mind, but I'll keep that like pinned toward the top of the list of the ideas that we have here on the channel. So the day that they put me in charge, we can work toward making that happen. Again, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to be a part of the show that way. Appreciate you, Clint. And I appreciate you, Payson Cougars fan. Payson Cougar fan says the Buckies, Big 15, and Utah, brought to you by Allstate. All right, so we're separating out Utah. Maybe this will be a good time to tell you that Phil Steele picked Utah to win the league, which is not, that's not surprising. A lot of people are, and depending on where you look, Utah has the lowest Vegas odds to win the Big 12. But he also had Utah at number 8 in the country and had them, I think Oklahoma State was number 15. So there was a sizable gap between Utah and everybody else. So Phil Steele, very, very high on the Utes, thinks that they are every bit the national program. Maybe not every bit. He thinks they are close to every bit the national program that Utah fans seem to internally think that they are. So thus my comment that it might get a bit of an eye roll from some Big 12 folks here. But honestly, if you have somebody who does have a nice following that's national and they're picking somebody from the Big 12 in the top 10, that's a good thing for the conference. I know we have our inter-conference rivalries, and there have been some feathers ruffled by Utah fans so far, but you need that kind of respect for teams in the league. It's going to be better for us all. That will be better for everybody. But that is funny, Payson Cougar fan. Everybody's getting on the Allstate train. Allstate, not a sponsor, could be. If somebody would like to get in touch with an Allstate rep and tell them the work that we're doing here on this channel, I would gladly accept payment from Allstate. I will take Allstate's money. I will rename it the Allstate Show. Whatever Allstate wants, I will do it. Maybe I'll get the directive from Karen at Endeavor here pretty soon. All hail Lord Karen, that we need to start doing that. So I'm glad that you guys are ahead of the game on this. Payson Cougar fan, you're the man. Thank you. Buckies, if you want to get back involved here, I would definitely take that as well. I do love me some Buckies. All right, Payson Cougar fan, to Julius. Julius, appreciate you, my friend. BYU repping hard here to start the show. Thank you, Julius, as always. I appreciate it so much. Julius says, howdy, John. It's been a minute since I've caught a live show. Just wanted to show some support, and show some support you did. Thank you, Julius. I appreciate you immensely. BYU football is making me scared, but the basketball team seems like they pulled in some ringers and will be just fine. I don't have a great vibe for what I'm looking forward to this from media days to get a little more insight on BYU football. I don't have a great feel or vibe for what the Cougars are going to be this fall. Basketball, I'm with you. You guys know I love the hire. You guys know that I would argue that you upgraded at head coach, kind of fell upward by losing Mark Pope to Kentucky. And I am extremely bullish on the future of BYU basketball. Football, I don't know, man. It does seem like it's stuck in a bit of a rut. And there's good news and bad news to that, because in the Big 12, I mean, there are no real dominant forces here. So that affords you some opportunity to at least be in virtually every single game week in, week out. But at the same time, every week is going to be pretty tough. I mean, there are not a lot of easy outs in this league. So yeah, I'm curious, BYU fans. Let me know in the comments like how you're feeling about things right now. So I can understand that vibe, Julius. That is, from the outside looking in, kind of the sort of vibe that I am getting from BYU fans, for what it's worth. But last year I felt like, I had a great conversation with Tom Holmoe. I had a great conversation with Kalani Sitake at media days. So I'm hopeful to gain some more insight and see where things seem to stand for the Cougars there. But Julius, it is great to hear from you as always. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for chiming in and being a part of the live show here. I really do appreciate that, my friend. Where'd Lewis go? Louise. Thank you for being here. Louis Doe. UTEs might be shocked by strength if the conference. BYU will be much better than Steele and Athlon realized. K-State and Oklahoma State will be good. All right, so we've got some reaction. We've got some UTEs. What am I doing? The Utes. That was bad, guys. That was bad. That's what happens when you're reading live sometimes. The Utes might be shocked by the strength of the conference. I don't think Utah will be shocked, but I think they could be surprised. And I think a lot of this season for Utah, we talk so much, at least in my world, because I'm obviously much more engrossed in what's happening in the state of Kansas. There's so much talk about Jalen Daniels' health. I mean, K-State fans certainly love to harp on that because Kansas has a really dynamic quarterback that is absolutely a threat to win the league and beat K-State if he is healthy. He has not been very healthy throughout his career. So there's a lot of talk about Jalen Daniels' health. I do feel like there's just more of an assumption that, like, hey, Cam Rising will just come back and be fine. And there should be no real concern about Cam Rising's health. There probably should be some, right? I mean, that guy's been around forever. He's coming off of a serious injury. And that was a weird saga last year where it was like, well, he's going to be back, getting close. And then it just never happened. Are we supposed to believe that it's just everything's, snap your fingers, everything will be fine and dandy and good for Cam Rising here? I think it's fair to bring up some of that same criticism that we do with Cam Rising that we do with Jalen Daniels. So that combined with, yes, this league probably being, I think, stronger than Utah, at least the fan base expects it to be, could be a smidge surprising there. Kyle Whittingham, I would expect, is probably not going to be caught too off guard there. I would think the coaching staff has more of a respect than Utah Twitter, for instance. But in general, if you're talking about the team and the fan base, yeah, some of that could very, very well be true. Look, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that BYU will be better. I would love to see BYU be better. I think that's a good thing for the conference. Like, whether you like them or not, BYU is the biggest national brand that this conference has right now outside of Colorado, as ridiculous as that sounds. But because of Coach Prime, I would put that number one. But Utah has that built-in national fan base with the LDS Church. They are a big brand in the league, and it would be better for the league, I would tell you, if they are good. So I think that would be a good thing for everybody. Yeah, K-State, Oklahoma State, Kansas, I think all will be very good. Arizona, Iowa State, kind of in the next group to me. So it's Utah, K-State, Oklahoma State, I think 1, 2, 3 in the league in some order. So I think we're pretty in agreement there. Lewis. Okay, we've got a couple more super chats to hit in here. Lively chat so far tonight. What's going on, Andre? Thank you, Andre. Looking to see if there is a question or comment attached with this. I'm not seeing one. So, hey, Andre, my man, thank you for the support. Let me know if there is something that I'm missing here in the chat. It looks like I've already seen people talking about trolling. I don't know what is going down in the chat so far tonight, guys. What is happening? Shane, what's going on? Shane, thank you for the support. Appreciate you being here, my friend. Shane says Florida State should utilize their Seminole tribe connections and build a Hard Rock casino at their stadium. Hit the slots after the game. I don't know what are the legalities with that? What are the laws with that? I mean, that certainly seems like it would probably sell. I mean, especially these days, if you can put a sports book there. I mean, you could get just about anybody. I think that would be attending a Florida State game to walk in there with how popular sports betting is these days. But Shane, I do not know the laws of the state of Florida. Florida seems kind of like another world at times these days with how they do things there. So I'm not going to try and guess on that. I will leave that up to you guys. I did say I was going to try and pass the LSAT pretty soon, but I don't have Florida specific law knowledge. Might have to ask Matt Baker. You could ask Matt Baker from the Tampa Bay Times, who's done an excellent job covering that whole saga between the ACC and Florida State. And that will roll us right into the ACC and Florida State, and specifically here to start, Josh Pate. So Josh Pate had the gif of the water like rippling and said, like, ACC. He said this is about the ACC, and then somebody followed up, I would presume to be a hopeful ACC fan, and said, ACC expanding. And Josh Pate said, no, the ACC is about to do the opposite of that. So that got people talking last week. I mean, look, it's June. We don't have a whole lot going on. Stuff like that is going to control the news cycle when it comes from somebody with as big a following as he has. That's just the name of the game when we are in June right now, and everybody is clamoring for something to talk about because we don't have the actual games. And we are deep, deep, deep into the offseason. Well, Josh Pate on his latest show did clarify the comments, and hide your ears. If you are an ACC purist, if you are a Wake Forest fan, if you are a Syracuse fan, and again, I say this with all love, I understand. I am a K-State fan, guys, so I understand that my school is in very much the same position. But this won't sound great, because the first line of this that Josh Pate said when he followed up on his latest show was, yeah, I think the ACC is kind of sort of screwed. So we'll start the bidding there. Yeah, I think the ACC is kind of sort of screwed. I think the future of the conference will look radically different than it does now. There are powerful entities that are well motivated and well financially backed that want out. In other words, FSU, and they're not alone. I think they're going to get out. Okay, nothing in that paragraph is really new news. New news. Nothing there is really new news. We know Florida State wants out. We know that they're pretty much going to get out one way or another. It's really a matter of cost and time. What will be the prices to be paid there? Clemson is very much in the same boat. The rest of this is where it starts to get more interesting. So Josh Pate says that he is getting this from legal sources. This is not sourcing from inside the sport. These are legal sources that he has. And he says, I don't even know if they're aware of what Florida State's mascot is, but they're on the legal side. So the point there that he would be emphasizing is like, guys, this is not anybody who's trying to make any sort of point to be alarmist for college football reasons or would have any bone to pick or narrative to push for college football reasons. These are people from the legal side of things. They don't care about the sport. They're not concerned with the consequences there. So Josh says, I've gotten as much intel as they can give me throughout this whole thing. And they've always been very, very guarded. They talk like classic legal types would talk. I can't say this. I can't tell you this. I can't tell you that. I can't respond to that. So he's building you up here to show these are not people who would just speak on something all willy-nilly for no reason. And Pate says, well, earlier this week, they said, hey, get ready, it's coming. And that's when he put the GIF out. So his legal sources, who are typically pretty guarded, told him, hey, it's coming. And that is surprising to me because, again, like the latest updates here from Matt Baker, it was basically like, I mean, the ACC just took some L's, but all four cases, he had a great tweet earlier this week where he went down like ACC versus Florida State, still happening. Florida State versus the ACC, still happening. Clemson versus the ACC, still happening. ACC versus Clemson, still happening. The ACC Florida State stuff, still happening in the state of Florida because the ACC took some L's. Like all that stuff is still going on, and that leaves you a lot of convoluted mess to try and clean up if you're talking about what is going to unfold in these court cases, because you just have so much to go through in all of those different cases. And every time something happens, there's like 3 weeks for somebody to respond, and it just keeps going and going and going and seemingly never ends, right? So that none of that seems to equal to me, hey, this would be something that's over pretty quick. I guess unless there's going to be a settlement really quickly here. But the ACC, at least what they publicly said at Amelia Island during ACC spring meetings not that long ago, was we're digging in. I guess pseudo publicly. Some of this was through sourcing, but ACC sources were saying like, yeah, why would we settle right now? We're going to drag this thing out as long as we can. That's the attitude seemingly from the ACC right now. That's the reality of the courts right now. Is it seems like there's a lot built up to stop something happening fast. So I don't know what the specific inside info is here. And Josh Pate did say like, hey, I can't give you a ton of specifics here in all of this, but I'm going to close by reading you this, that he said, I don't know what the timeline is. I just know this is the kind of person who is not one for hyperbole. It wouldn't stun me at all if we heard news on this front before the season starts. And that's what, 9 Saturdays away? So he closed by saying it wouldn't stun me at all if we saw news on this before the season starts. Again, that to me is very surprising, just based on how far it seems like all of these cases have to go right now. And I don't know what it would be that would really push the ACC to settle right now. You're signing your death warrant more or less with that. Maybe it's not a total collapse of the conference, but you're signing your death warrant in terms of being very relevant here, because you know what's going to happen. The second that you do it with one of the schools, like Florida State will go, Clemson will follow, North Carolina, there will be dominoes. You can try to hang on. You can try to backfill a little bit. It could just be stripped down and you become that like Ivy League light sort of conference that they have talked about there. But all of a sudden, you're going to be at risk of the Sharks circling the waters and Brett Yormark if teams start to leave. Then are you going to lose schools to the Big 12? Like, it's very risky, and you very well could be signing over your death warrant by doing that. So it just feels difficult for me to see that there would be a settlement coming up soon. But I don't know. Is there some big breakthrough in the case that is going to massively favor Florida State and Clemson getting out quicker? Don't know. There are a myriad of things that this could possibly be. But it is news to me when you have somebody with the following and at least the respect of me, like Josh Pate does, when he is saying that and he's getting this from sources that he tells you, especially like are not in the college football world, come from the legal side, which they would have a much better idea of how this stuff actually works. That is of note to me, because remember, I joke about like, hey, I'm going to take the LSAT and get a law degree. None of us, like, we didn't go to school for this. We don't know this. Even these guys who are doing great reporting on this. It was funny, like, Nick, talking to Nick from Analyzing Finance with Nick, who's been on the channel a couple times now. I think it was him, or maybe it was somebody else in the private equity realm. But, you hear people kind of complain about how the private equity stuff has been reported, because they're like, I mean, you can tell these reporters, well, they may be very good reporters in the sports realm. Like, they're not trained to report on this stuff. They don't know the private equity world and the finance world. And that's like all fair, because we don't, right? So it means more to me when something is going to come from the legal world, I would say here, unless it's like a direct source out of an athletic department, like something's already been signed, sealed, and delivered and is coming. I do think it's natural to trust the legal world here with no college football ties. Everybody trying to push an agenda basically in the college football world. So I guess it's just time to really be on high alert. It's time to be on high alert. I mean, I did not expect 2 years ago in 2022 that the USC UCLA thing was going to happen. When it did, that snuck up on everybody. Maybe this will be it. It really has been like a TV show. And I know there are plenty of jokes wrapped within that, because TV is pulling the strings on everything and controlling everything in the sport these days. But if you think about it, man, it was like 2021 was season 1. We got Realignment season 1 in 2021 with Texas and Oklahoma. Then we got Realignment season 2 with USC and UCLA leaving the next summer. And it's working perfectly. If you're thinking about it from an entertainment standpoint, you get Realignment, then you have a whole season to play out. And then it's the depths of the offseason, and you get Realignment again, and then we get a whole season to play out. And then it's the depths of the offseason last year, and what do we get? We get the crumbling of the Pac-12. We get the Big 12 poaching the 4 corner schools. We get Oregon and Washington off to the Big 10. Like, all of that stuff unfolds on this perfect TV sort of timeline. And where are we at right now as this drops from Josh Pate? It just seems all too perfect, right? We're in June. I mean, July is like really, truly, truly the doldrums of the offseason, and not like furthest away from the season, but it's like we're close, but you're not totally there. July, you will have media days and some exciting things happening, I suppose. So you can make the argument that right now we're really basically in the worst part of the offseason here, and where we most need this type of thing. And then, of course, that's where we're going to get this. Fate seems to be leading us down this road, folks. I guess is really the point. Fate seems to be leading us down this road of course, this would be when we get some kind of big breaking news about the ACC and Florida State or Clemson, and some big bomb that is going to drop. just stay alert. Stay alert. I certainly will be. And look, you don't have to respect Josh Pate the same way that I do, but I don't know. I would say listen to his show. I enjoy it quite a bit. Yes, I understand there's a lot of SEC talk and all that. I do like the guy. I like the way that he presents his content. He certainly is very, very measured in how he does things. He's not a hot take guy. I'd be paying attention to this. That's just my advice. Word to the wise here on the channel. Here is the ACC update. Judge John C. Cooper denied the ACC's remaining motions to dismiss 5 counts in Florida State's complaint against the league. The decision allows Florida State to keep arguing its complaints about sovereign immunity, antitrust concerns, and the unenforceability of the league's grant of rights. The ACC's next response to Florida State's 9-count complaint is due within 20 days. Cooper also cleared the way for discovery, the sharing of information and documents. That always opens up the possibility of some interesting things to happen. Of course, at the center of some of that has been the documents between the ACC and ESPN, which like literally every conference has now stepped to the table and said, all right, we don't need that getting out. We don't want the ACC and ESPN's agreement getting out. Nobody seems to really want that out there except potentially the campaigning attorney general of the state of Florida. Cooper's email follows a similar ruling from the bench during an all-day hearing earlier this week where he rejected the ACC's jurisdictional concerns about whether a nonprofit based in North Carolina can be sued in Florida. So he threw out the ACC saying, hey, this case shouldn't be able to take place in Florida. He said, no, nonsense. You can. You've got enough business here in Florida. You can actually be sued here, and this case could take place here. Judge also denied the conference's motion to dismiss 2 specific parts of Florida State's complaint, which is that the exit fee is unenforceable and that the ACC broke its constitution and bylaws. Said, no, that can be a part of this case. I'm not going to dismiss that. So case can still take place in Florida. I'm not going to dismiss those 2 main pieces of Florida State's argument here. And at the same time, I guess just dismissed 5 counts overall here, if you're keeping track of what's going on. So thank you to Matt Baker of the Tampa Bay Times for doing a really nice job keeping up to date with all of that. He's done an excellent job reporting on it and keeps kind of a running blog going about everything that is happening with that case. Okay, you want to be a part of the show tonight? You guys know how to do it. You've seen plenty of it already tonight. Click the $ below the chat box in order to do so. Drop me a question or comment there. It will pin the super chats in a separate column for me. It's the way to guarantee that you make it on the show tonight. If you could also like the video, we have a lot more people in here than when we started. If you could like the video, easy, free, one-click way to support the channel. That is awesome. Leave me a comment in the comment section under the video or the live comments right now. All that stuff helps. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo as well if you want to support the channel that way. And if you leave a question or comment on Venmo, I will kickstart the next show with your question or comment as well. So you can be a part of the live convo, even if you are not catching this live right now. You know what? If you say something like this, you'll just get on anyway. Thank you, Brown. I do feel like I am the man. Thank you very much. If anybody else has nice things to say about me, you can make the show as well. That I'll give you that. That's an easy way to do it as well. Very economical way to do it. So if you guys watched the channel earlier this week, you saw the Gene Taylor video that I put out. Gene Taylor is the athletic director at K-State. I had a chance to talk with him on what originally aired on the 3 Ma podcast, which if you're a K-State fan, it is a K-State specific podcast. I talked to him about a lot of things, but specifically we did like 10 minutes on kind of current states of college athletics and how you handle that if you're the Big 12. And it's a pretty good time to be getting that sort of take from a Big 12 AD because there is revenue sharing on the horizon. We've had the House settlement. And then the stories, of course, broke within the last week. I guess it's been about a week and a half at this point about the Big 12 exploring private equity and exploring a naming rights deal. Again, the All-State 12, back to the beginning of the video. So there were a couple things of note that I thought he said there, and I want to, let's make sure we're Sharing the screen here so that we can play these and then react to this. First things first, will the Big 12 actually be able to hit the $22 million revenue sharing number in the first place? I would think this very much is contingent on whether or not private equity comes through. It is really hard for me to foresee $22 million being carved out just of the athletic department budget here by a lot of these schools if that doesn't happen. And Gene Taylor gave an answer that kind of made me think, I'm not sure if they're really planning right now and going for the full 22. Here is what he had to say.
Do we share it equitably amongst our athletes and conform with Title IX? Or is it a true revenue share in the sports that make most of the revenue, which would be football and basketballs, get a majority of the revenue share? And then what does that put us in as position as an institution? If we do that, are we facing a Title IX lawsuit? If we go to the equal share or revenue, if we do it equitably, then are we facing some other kind of lawsuit from some of the athletes that generate a majority of the revenue? And we don't have answers for that. We kind of know a number that we're working towards and figuring out how we're going to get there.
That's really the key of it at the end. You know, I left a little bit in to set up some context there, but we kind of have a number that we know we're working toward. I would just say, like, as a Big 12 fan, as a K-State fan, first and foremost, it didn't leave me feeling supremely confident, like, hey, they feel like they're going to be able to hit $22 million, right? I did not take it like that. We'll see. And I think a part of that might be like, hey, we have a number in mind right now. We'll see what happens with naming rights money coming in. We'll see what happens with private equity and where we go with that, because Gene Taylor did not want to comment too much specifically on that. He did not get very much into it. But when you just say, like, hey, we have a number that we're working towards, that makes me think it's probably not 22, because, like, Ohio State, for instance, I'm going to read to you some reaction from Ohio State here in just a moment. Ohio State was like rushing out there to say, like, yeah, we're going to hit the $22 million rev share. Nebraska, you know, there were the comments from Troy Dannon at Nebraska, the athletic director there, where he was pretty keen to rush out and say, like, yeah, we're going to hit the 22 mil. Like, we're going to hit that. If you're going to hit it, you would definitely want to be out front saying it. If you're a Big 12 school, like, I get it, though. I feel like there's no way that you would be able to at this time be able to say, like, for sure, we're going to do this. We know that we'll be able to do this. Impossible to know right now, because there are too many factors coming into how the Big 12 is going to try and finance this thing to really know if you'd be able to handle it. So you're kind of in a tough spot. You're kind of in a tough spot trying to budget for that. And maybe there are contingency plans based on, all right, if we get X from private equity, the number will be Y. If we don't do private equity, the number will be Z, et cetera, on down the line. Honestly, that one little line was probably as interesting as any of the entire conversation that we had there for him. I will give you this on the TV deal. Gene Taylor said that not only is he bullish on the TV deal, but
right now our TV
are. Sorry for jumping the gun on you there, but let me play this clip real quick from Gene Taylor on the TV deal, where he seems to think that those in the industry feel that the Big 12's valuation is going to jump quite a bit because of it.
Right now, our TV deal is what it is, but he feels that the upside of our next deal could be much bigger, and he believes in that, and he's kind of buying into that, and I think the people he talks to in the industry truly believe that as well. So, I think we all have to really be aggressive and stay relevant's the right word. I don't know if relevant's the right word, because I think as a conference we're very relevant, particularly in some of our sports.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that brought up memories of, or at least harkened back to, the story that we saw. It was the Dennis Dodd initial report about private equity, where the thought was that the Big 12 could double in valuation basically by the end of that thing. And that was deemed like a pretty reasonable number from industry sources that were quoted there. So we are now seeing from a couple different angles here, a lot of people who seem to be believing in the value of this conference really going up, which is significant, because if you think about the current landscape of TV rights, it's not been moving in an ultra positive direction. Just ask the Pac-12 about how that is going. So it's of note saying that, hey, we think the Big 12's value will increase with all these things. Basketball may well be a big part of that. And if you think about when the next TV rights deal would come up for the Big 12, right now it seems to be on track to try to decouple football and basketball, or at least that is certainly a school of thought out there that the Big 12 could do that. The only problem with that is this does run into the same criticism that a lot of people have given toward private equity. If you're trying to get into private equity, if you do it, the SEC and Big Ten can just do it even better and make even more money than you. So that is a concern here. I would say, all right, if you're going to say the Big 12 will double in valuation, or the Big 12 is going to add so much more value to the next TV deal, you could also say, well, then what's going to happen to the Big Ten and the SECs, right? It will just go up exponentially more. And well, you continue to make more and more revenue, you're just going to be spinning on the hamster wheel, right? And kind of in the same place. That is, I would fully admit, certainly a concern and something to keep in mind here when you talk about that. Like, I was looking at it, I think it was the Big 12 Wikipedia page earlier today. Can't remember how I got down that rabbit hole, but I was literally reading the Big 12 Wikipedia page, and it had a list of like payouts per year for the Big 12 schools since the league started. And at the beginning, it was like $4 million a year. And then I was like, man, it's crazy. Like, now we're sitting here talking about, 10x, basically that, 9 to 10 times that, and you're wildly behind. So that's just how it goes. Now, this is the part that we should hone in on and really focus in on, because it is actually different than what was said by leadership at Ohio State in a piece that I want to get to that was from the Columbus Dispatch this week. So Gene Taylor actually said he feels like collectives can't really be the same, and that they wouldn't really be able to operate the same way that they are right now once we get into revenue sharing.
In today's NIL world, really can't be the same based on the settlement language. From our understanding, is individual donors cannot give to a third party for pay for play. You can still have a corporate true NIL deal, and that's still allowable. But will the collectives be able to maintain, and can we continue to ask the donors to give to a collective and to give the athletics to help support the revenue sharing? I don't think we can.
That one I heard, and I thought, man, I feel like that actually would be fairly controversial. I appreciate, again, Gene Taylor and his insight there. I was like, that seems fairly controversial. I think a lot of people feel like collectives will still be a pretty big part of this, and that the big boys in the SEC and Big Ten are going to be hitting their $22 million revenue sharing number and then coming in over the top with NIL collectives to provide even more money. Now, he is right that it seemed like the initial language on that was like, well, it would have to be more of a corporate sponsorship as opposed to individual donors. I just think a lot of people feel like that'll get changed, sorted out. There will be a workaround. Like, there's just no way that, especially if you follow what I'm going to read to you from Ohio State, where they're saying they feel like it'll be split basically 50-50 between male and female athletes, the $22 million that comes in, that you're going to say, all right, you only have $11 million for all of your men's sports at Ohio State, which includes football right now. And Troy Dannon at Nebraska is saying Ohio State's paying $23 million for their football NIL right now. You're going to cut that way more than in half, because you're going to have to spread some of it to men's basketball and other men's sports. And that's just basically going to be it, unless it's some big corporate deal. And you'll have to get big corporate sponsors to be the ones fueling all of this. They would find, I'm sure, some way. I would think some way to get the individual donors involved there. And let me read to you what was said at Ohio State here. So Ross Bjork is the relatively new AD there at Ohio State. Based on the latest legal guidance presented to the athletic department, Bjork anticipates the amounts dispersed to male and female athletes will need to be proportional to their enrollment at the university. Okay, so Ohio State is 52% female and 48% male, meaning you would have, in essence, a 50-50 split there. In fact, a little bit more of that $22 million would be given to female athletes because of Title IX. The article goes on to say how payments are further broken down among the men's and women's sports remains unknown. Bjork said he did not expect the payments to be evenly divided between the athletes, which seems obvious, right? Not every sport is going to receive the same money. That's what that would mean. So you'd be giving football more than baseball, for instance. And Bjork says there are going to be hard decisions because it's a recalibration of the model. An attempt to bridge any potential gaps is to be made through compensation from booster-supported collectives or other business entities that strike NIL deals with athletes. Revenue sharing is great, Bjork said, but NIL is not going away, and we would be naive to think that $22 million is going to be the market. Let's stop that. There's more of the quote here. But the AD at Ohio State is saying it would be naive to think $22 million is going to be the market. And that's I would subscribe to that theory. I certainly do. And I'm somebody that would benefit greatly if $22 million was the market. If $22 million was the market, that would be the best thing for Big 12 schools. And you just push everything all into that 22, and that would be a cap. You know, people talk about like a cap, basically, sort of a salary cap in college sports. That's what we would be talking about there, like a $22 million salary cap. But Ross Bjork says, look, that's pretty naive. He said it's going to increase, but that's not going to be the market. It's going to be that plus NIL, and the programs that figure out the NIL infrastructure are going to thrive. We want to be one of those programs. Now, I'm open to maybe Gene Taylor is coming down more on the semantics line here, where he's saying, hey, right now, the language is you wouldn't really be able to do that with the collectives. That will be different. And maybe Ross Bjork is kind of in agreement there, but saying, like, we'll find a workaround, whether that's, you know, funneling money through the corporations, like whatever it's going to be, someone will figure it out. But I have to say, like, everything he is saying here is 100% accurate. It's college athletics. Like, it used to be money totally under the table. Then wild, wild west of collectives. At first, some schools jumped out way in front on that and got it figured out. You had Miami paying Nigel Pack $800,000, right, to go play when that was considered like, oh my God, what is happening there? Someone will figure it out. Like, it's too competitive of an environment for somebody not to. Someone will figure it out. And it's going to get up over that $22 million number if you want to really play with the big boys. Now, Ohio State saying, I do think it's of significance here that Ohio State's athletic director is basically saying that because of Title IX, that seems to be the way the cookie will crumble on that Title IX would force them to split it pretty evenly, because that is one of the biggest question marks right now that people have about how all this is going to go down. So I would just say a different tone. I mean, a different tone between the Big 12 and the Big 10 in terms of what athletic directors are saying here about how the NIL and revenue share payments are going to work out. Interesting stuff there. I'm telling you where I'm at. I love Gene Taylor to death. Think he's an excellent athletic director. The guy has overseen an athletic department that in the last 2 years has won the Big 12 in football, gone to a Sugar Bowl, been to an Elite Eight in basketball, been to a super regional in baseball. The women's basketball team was ranked number 2 in the country and hosted tournament games. He's got a very successful thing going within the athletic department at K-State. The Big 12 would be inclined potentially to think, in the words of Ross Bjork, a little more naively with this, because it would benefit them, but also could just be playing coy. There's a lot going on clearly behind the scenes. The Big 12 isn't dumb. Gene Taylor's not dumb. Brett Yormark certainly is not dumb. It's a lot that I think still needs to get sorted out. Also of note, another thing, just my little notepad as I think about what's going to happen on July 9th and 10th in Vegas at Big 12 Media Days. He was not very willing, Gene Taylor, to go into any of the private equity and naming rights stuff. So are we just going to get like a total no comment from Brett Yormark on that? Like, how will Yormark handle that, assuming that there are no finalized decisions made by the time that we get there? All things to ponder. All things to ponder. Let's ponder what Aloha Nate has to say. Appreciate you, Aloha Nate. Thank you for being here. Thank you for checking in tonight. Aloha Nate says, aren't Big 12 schools getting a new TV deal starting in 2025 and getting a raise from the playoff? Can't that money be used for revenue sharing? Yes, it can. It can. They are going to get some more money from that, but it's not going to be nearly enough to make up $22 million, right? So it's 31.7 the payout per team from the new TV deal. The college football playoff, they're getting obviously a lower percentage of the money than what the SEC and Big Ten are going to get. So that number will go up. But again, the problem becomes if there's not this $22 million cap, which Ross Bjork says would be naive to think that there is, then the SEC and Big Ten are just getting that much further ahead of you. Like both of those things go up for the Big 12, but both of those things go up more for the SEC and Big Ten. And in fact, there were tweets this week from reporters about the financials are starting to come out from Big Ten schools, like their projected budgets. I know John Wilner wrote about what was happening at Washington, for instance, and they use that to project that it's Big Ten schools are going to get $75 million. $75 million. I mean, it's legitimately a solid 30 more than what you're going to be getting in the Big 12 or the ACC. Like it's a sobering number. They will be that much further ahead, and that is going to help out a lot in the race to 22. It's going to help out a lot everywhere else. If you need to buy facilities, if it can pull some of the donor fatigue away by you can contribute more from the university to the rev share number, and donors would have to do less. Like there are a million ways that can benefit them more than it does for the Big 12. So that is the unfortunate thing, and that is Aloha Nate to go back to some of the criticism of the moves the Big 12 is contemplating. A lot of the detractors would say there's nothing you can do. Like in all this stuff, you make more money, they're going to make even more money than you, and you'll still fall further behind. So that is unfortunately kind of the reality there. What's up, Alan? Thank you for being here, Alan. Always appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for checking in. Alan says, John, can't wait for football season to start. Looking forward to planning the pregame party for JK listeners, Jayhawk and Wildcat friends. I am too, Alan. Let's do it, man. Let's do it. We'll have. I would love to have like a little John Kurtz YouTube tailgate. That would be amazing. And you don't have to be a Wildcat or a Jayhawk to come. Any Big 12 fan, welcome there. Would love to get that all in the works. Alan, I will just say, I don't know if you're on Twitter, Alan, but the K-State KU conversation, man, is just, it's too much, man. It's kind of exhausting. Like I did fire off one tweet today, first time in a while, because I just saw this getting so out of it. It's like, I mean, I get it. People have burners and they just go say whatever it is that they're going to say. But it's like every single day with the nip in it's something, whether it's Jalen Daniels or Avery Johnson or Lincoln Cure, whatever it is, someone's got something to say. And it's just like, can we skip a day? Can we take a day and not do this? We just there need to be games played, I guess is the point, Alan. Like we need some actual games, but unfortunately we're still here in June. We've still got like 2 months before the season is going to actually start, and we'll get to that point. So I think it's going to continue going. But hey, it is a good problem to have. I'll end with that. It's a good problem to have because it means that all 4 of the men's basketball and football teams in the state of Kansas at K-State and KU are very good and very relevant, certainly at least very relevant. And that's led to the fan base is getting real chatty with each other, real chatty with each other. So appreciate you, Alan. We are getting close, and I am excited for that. And I appreciate that you have the enthusiasm for that. It'll be great. Thank you, Alan. All right. Buzzer beater time. Buzzer beater time. If anybody has anything, now is the time. Just a couple minutes left here on the show. You can click the $ below the chat box in order to join John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you are not live, and I will read your question or comment to start the next show. Also, please just like the video, leave comments. All of that stuff really, really does help. Let me show you the Phil Steele list. I'll show you the Phil Steele list. I was saying that it feels almost like Phil Steele has a Utah burner after putting out this list. Why is my Phil Steele list not popping up? Let me try this one more time. It was actually the Big 12 itself that tweeted out the Phil Steele list too. I say list. It is just how he is ranking the Big 12 teams. Get the screen shared. Here we go. Here's what you have. Phil Steele has Utah at number 8, Oklahoma State at number 15, K-State at number 23, Iowa State at 29, Arizona at 30, West Virginia at 35, Kansas at 37. So you have 7 teams in the top 40. To me, my initial reaction, if you just wanted me to play like, hey, what is your initial thought on all these? Utah too high, Oklahoma State too high, K-State about right, a little too low perhaps, Arizona too low. I skipped Iowa State, didn't I? Iowa State about right, maybe slightly too high. West Virginia about right, maybe slightly too high. Kansas too low. That was the one that really surprised me. The outer edges of that, having Utah at number 8 and Kansas at number 37, I would disagree with both of those. Kansas to me is probably in the 20s. Utah's probably 13, 14, 15. Number 8 seems pretty high. I mean, that's a ton of respect for Utah. I'm not saying they don't deserve respect. They certainly do. It's a little too rich for my blood on this. Like, if we're saying that they're number 8, do I think Utah this year is going to be able to legitimately compete with your like number 2 teams in the Big Ten or the SEC? Probably not. But hey, look, we discussed the Cam Rising injury thing. I do think that is something to keep an eye on with them. You know that they're always going to have a really good defense and be very, very well coached. I know they have a lot of options in the backfield at running back too this year. There is certainly a lot to like there about the pedigree with Utah, but I don't know, man. I do think there's something to transitioning conferences. You lose a lot of familiarity. That can make things a little bit trickier. Utah does have a pretty manageable schedule. I will give them that. It's a big part of why they could potentially be that high from Phil Steele. But I will need to see. There's not enough stability right there between Rising's injury and changing conferences for me to feel confident like this is going to be a quintessential Utah team this year. That would be my read on it right now. We'll see. But as I said, this is great. This is honestly a great thing. I know some of us bristle a little bit like, we don't want Utah Twitter to get too big for their britches and all that with this sort of respect or whatever. This is good for the conference. You need people to do this. Moving forward, you will need people to put, whether it's your team, a rival, or somebody in between, you need people from the Big 12 to be put into the top 10 by people. Helping with narratives, just helping with general respect. You want that to happen. So make no mistake, Utah fans, I'm here saying that this is a good thing. If it finished like this, it would be a good thing for the conference to have a top 10 team there and somebody that people believed could legitimately make noise in the college football playoff. That would be a good thing for the league. So that's what Phil Steele says. Let me know in the comments where you feel like he is wrong, if he is wrong in your squad. I do see someone like, why is Oklahoma State always under the radar? And it's not critical. I think Oklahoma State to me is in that group. Utah, K-State, Oklahoma State are fairly interchangeable for me in the top group of Big 12 contenders this year. So I mean, no disrespect for Oklahoma State, but to me, it's more like, Utah in the teens, K-State, Oklahoma State in the low teens to early 20s is sort of how I would feel about it right now. David, what's up, David? David says Big Ten schools are getting $21 million per team from the college football playoff. That is up $6 million. That pretty much covers the revenue sharing for Big Ten schools. Big 12 is at $12 million per team. Like, yes, but it's not a $21 million increase, right? They're not getting $21 million more than they used to from the college football playoff. So I don't think you're necessarily trying to say that. I do just want to clarify that for people. It's not like, oh, hey, we're getting $21 million more from the playoffs, so we can just take that money and immediately plop that right into the budget as the payout for revenue sharing here. It's $21 million is the total, which is up from what they used to get. There's going to be some amount of difference there that you could just say, hey, that's new revenue, new profit. We'll just take that and drop it in. Well, excuse me, non-profit, NCAA. That's new revenue. We'll just take that and drop it in and call it good. It's not quite like that. And yes, that Big 12 number is, I think the Big 12 might actually be like just slightly below that in the 11s. And the ACC had 12 point something. The Big 12 had a little bit less than the ACC because it was all based on college football playoff success since the playoffs started, and the ACC had a little bit more. So, but yes, if you want to say, hey, just you could take that and throw it, if you're budgeting that, you could directly attribute that money to you could, but theoretically that money has already been going. A big chunk of that 21 mil has already been allocated to the budget based on where it's been going for the last however many years that we've had the playoff, and that money was in place there. So I do appreciate you bringing up those numbers, though, David. That is good and very helpful. Much appreciate that. Thank you, David. And thank you for your support of the channel, David. Always in here, always bringing good content, always a good time. I don't know if I've answered this before. Here's another good way to get on the show. If you ask me about the college football video game, I know I already talked about this the other day when someone asked if I would be playing, and I said, well, I feel like as an adult with as much as I have going on, it's hard for me to budget out a bunch of time to play a video game, even though I will desperately want to. I also just haven't played video games in years. I am a console behind, so I would have to invest in a new console. Like, there's just so much that would have to happen. But I'm a guy that used to camp out and wait for the game at midnight on July, whatever, that it would come out in the summer. So I did. I mean, I have played so many hours of NCAA football in my life. Who would I be playing as? Oh, you just asked, you're going to be playing. All right, I guess you got your answer there. I looked at it real quick first, and I thought it said, who are you going to be playing as? Which, like, obviously I would spend a lot of time playing as K-State, but I when I played, I didn't always do that. Like, I had to spread it out. And so sometimes I would do the classic, take the underdog, and not an FCS team, but, like a Sun Belt team, and build them up. Sometimes I would just pick like what felt like a fun Power 5 team to start. You do all sorts of things, back in the day when as a high school or college student, when I had tons of free time. I mean, I did all sorts of things. I don't remember like a specific team that I took, because I wouldn't take a team and just make that like be the dynasty. I was always trying to get my coach the next gig, right? I was trying to job jump and do all of that. Guess you could call me like Coach Doug's for everybody who remembers watching that during the pandemic. So I don't know. I'd have to think about like what the other team is that I would really want to be, who I would want to take over and try to change. But K-State should have a fun roster this year for this game. I do always think back to would have been like NCAA 04 when K-State had L. Roberson and Darren Sproles, which is a really, really fun video game backfield. So that's a probably longer story than you bargained for, Journeyman SW, but you got it from me. All right, appreciate all of you guys being here. Lovely to see you tonight. Make sure you click the like button on your way out the door. Leave me a comment underneath the video on your way out the door. That really helps. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to leave a question or comment there. I will kick off the next show to start with that as well. So lots of ways to keep in touch, keep engaged here on the channel. Let's see. Spread the word. Social media, Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, wherever you're at on the socials. Let your friends and family know about the channel. That would be great. Let's continue to grow this thing. Love all of you guys and greatly appreciate everybody who does. I know I keep teasing this. Making progress. There will be a new project unveiled soon that will be a new way for us to interact and keep in touch, that I'm very much looking forward to unveiling for you all here very, very shortly. So till then, have a great start to your week. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening, and I will talk to you all soon.